Hello and welcome back to the Early Bath Football Podcast. What a weekend in the Premier League. Lynchy and I even watched it abroad this weekend. Ed's, let's introduce Ed. Hello, Ed. How's it going? You look really
Good
smug.
evening.
There's
I'm
not
so
even anything
smug.
to say, is there? Just hello.
No, we will get into it. Just hello
get
for
into it.
now.
Definitely hasn't worn a Liverpool shirt for a while. Hello, Dan. How are you? You all right?
Very good, thanks, Ting. Very well rested after the trip with yourself and the others.
Fantastic. Myself and Dan were in Dubrovnik not 12 hours ago. So, we're back and ready to talk some domestic football. We didn't see a football pitch there, did we? There was like an FC United at Dubrovnik. They don't have a big team, but yeah, I think Hajduk Split is their closest team, which is like a billion miles away from Dubrovnik anyway. Chris, hello. How's it going?
Yes, not going too bad. I've still got this annoying cold, but I'm in a better shape than what Josh Leafy probably is currently in right now.
Okay, so it's taken 1 minute 16 seconds to bring up Josh Leafy on the Early Bath Football Podcast today.
Well, he's a poor manager, isn't he? So
Okay. God, I feel so sorry for him right now. And hello, Ash. How are you?
Hello, I'm wonderful, but as with Chris, I'm very worried about Leafy knowing some of their comments on the chat last night. I'm very worried for them.
We're worried for Steve Bruce and for Owen and Leif, but it's one of those things. Wait, I think that sort of segues us nicely into the first topic, which is Ollie out? ? Exclamation mark. We're not going to take the position of Ollie out. We're going to just ask the rhetorical question here of Ollie out. Reports today that some managing director at United, who I've never heard of because I don't support Man United, has cancelled all his meetings. I don't know how Fabrizio Romano knows all this stuff. He must have a bug on every single office in the Premier League and every single club around the world, but he somehow probably knows. But apparently the United board are really, really considering Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's position. But although saying that, I've seen very contrasting reports of they're going to talk about it or they are very much going to protect him. It's very much all across the spectrum of potentially what's happening with Ole. But the fact that the conversations and the reports are sort of alluding to this suggests that something might be happening. So we'll get into the game after, but let's just talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to begin with. Ed, as the Liverpool fan here, the resident Liverpool fan, thoughts?
What, on Ollie specifically?
On Ole Gunnar Solskjaer,
yeah,
and,
it's just
what he's been doing.
It's been coming. It's not a new issue. They've been saying it for weeks that United just don't seem to have a way of playing. They've got no structure to the way that they defend or attack. They've gotten out of jail because they've got some very, very good players in their squad, and they're lifting them to the heights that they are at the moment. But that's the biggest concern. It's not so. I mean, it obviously is the result, but it's the way in which they lost yesterday that's concerning United fans. He just doesn't seem to have. I just don't understand what they were trying to achieve yesterday. All the pundits have been talking about it, so apologies if I just regurgitate what they were saying, but they were trying to play aggressive attacking football. Am I still there? Everybody seems to have frozen.
No, you are. You're still here.
Everybody else is frozen.
No, you keep talking.
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to play attacking football, and the first goal, for example, it was just so half-assed. There was no cohesion between which players pressed. There was no trigger really. Like one player would go and then the other one would be like, oh, okay, yeah, I probably should go as well. But rather than sprinting and attacking the player, it was just ambling towards them. Wan-Bissaka for the first goal was appalling. It just cascaded. Everybody else I don't think there was anybody that had a good game. One person I would say I was surprised to get hooked at half-time was Mason Greenwood, because I thought he was their most dangerous player going forward in the first half. So yeah, I think the writing is on the wall for Ollie, just because they've just not got any way of playing really. It's just get it up to the front guys and hope that they do something special. Yeah, I'll leave it to the other guys. We'll come on to who they're going to potentially bring in, but yeah, I'll let somebody else have a couple of words to say about it.
Fantastic, thanks, Ed. And not for very non-biased from you there. I thought you would have just said Ollie and keep him in.
I'm a man of the people.
5-0 win to Liverpool, 5-0 wins to everyone. Very Oprah of Ollie. Lynchy, will Ole Gunnar Solskjaer be a United manager by when are they playing Spurs? Sometime this weekend, I imagine. Do you think he'll be the manager on Saturday?
Late kickoff.
Oh, thank you, Chris. And that's why Chris is on this podcast for some fantastic knowledge. Will he be manager, Lynchy, by then?
I think he will be. I don't think Manu will make what would be probably seen as a slightly rash decision. I mean, personally, I think if I was a Man United fan, I probably would want him to be leaving right now. But I don't think they'll make a rash decision and sack him this week ahead of a massive game, because I think that they'd have a greater chance of beating Spurs with him there right now. I think because he knows the players a bit more, rather than potentially getting in either getting in a manager this week, which I think is extremely unlikely, or a caretaker manager. I mean, I think that result yesterday was coming for weeks, though. I mean, you saw games like against Atalanta, Villarreal, even Newcastle, Man United conceded a lot of chances. Obviously, lost to Villa at home, Everton as well, and they were playing much more average teams and still conceding bucket loads full of chances. And when you're going to come up against a team like Liverpool, you're going to get found out, and it's like a get out of jail card for them almost in the last couple of games. But this one, it was just one too many for them. I think he will be the manager at the end of the game. At the end of this week, though.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Chris, are you an Arsenal fan this week or not? You won at the weekend, didn't you?
I'm both won.
Oh, fantastic.
Both won at the weekend.
Fantastic. So you'll recognise that when obviously Emery left. Good evening. Arsenal, and they got Arteta in, there was a bit of an upturn of results. I've just seen a tweet from the United View saying that United players are now openly discussing the possibility of whether a new manager would bring better results, and they're conscious of the upswing that Chelsea saw when Frank Lampard was replaced by Thomas Tuchel. So, obviously, that's very much a sort of recency bias thing. A team's come in or new managers come in, and there's been an upswing of results. Chelsea have always been very good this year. Arsenal, obviously, they were very good in the very short term with Arteta. I think they went on a bit of an unbeaten run, didn't they? So, do you think that's what United should be sort of holding out for? They're just a new, fresh. It's not even fresh. Why is it fresh legs? But for a manager, it's like fresh brains, isn't it? I don't know. You can't say fresh legs, can you? You know what I'm trying to say?
Fresh face,
fresh face, maybe.
Yeah. Fresh tactics and that.
Yeah.
No.
Or tactics in general. That's another topic we can get on to.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, obviously, you brought up Tuchel replacing Lampard with Chelsea, and I generally think if Manchester United want to get to Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City's level, then they have to get rid of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because you look at the previous managers of City, Liverpool, Chelsea. What was it? Pellegrini, Rodgers, and Lampard. Obviously, don't get me wrong, they did do well in periods at those clubs and that, but then obviously the board wanted to go to the next level and obviously challenge for titles and European trophies and that. And I generally think Man U need to replace Ole Gunnar Solskjaer if they want to compete with those clubs, because I mean, you look at it like this is, if Man U don't win anything this season, that's going to be 5 years without silverware for Manchester United. That's not good enough. I mean, I don't care people saying, "Oh, you should give Ollie more time," in that. It's it's not good enough. Like the performance yesterday was, I'll say the 3 words I described Arsenal's performance against Brentford. It was amateur, disgraceful, pathetic, and it generally was those 3 words and that. But I generally think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to be an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Good.
It's very good. That's a very interesting question. We'll talk about the game shortly soon. We will, but we'll just talk about. We'll turn to Barnes very quickly to end off this sort of round of discussion. Ash, you've been Ollie skeptical in the past. You've been a bit Ollie scathing. You've been a bit Ollie suspect as well. What are you feeling towards Ollie at the minute?
I feel sorry for him. It's Steve Bruce Part 2, where he's in there.
How dare you say his name?
How dare you say his name?
You love
He's a manager in there. He does not. He must know that he is not the man to take this club forward. He, as United fans will say, or people around Manchester United, he's in the club DNA. He knows that he can't take this team to the next. He has not got the sort of managerial and coaching or even tactical skills of Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel, or even the majority of the other managers in the Premier League. And that's not to say that he hasn't done a good job at United in general, because after Mourinho, I think they probably did the right thing in appointing him. But for the last season, even probably towards the end of, it's just been so clear that he is not the right man to move them forward. And it's bizarre that he hasn't been sacked by now. And I know people say, he's got friends in the media, he's a Manchester United legend, so the fans want to keep him. But at the end of the day, that kind of sums up some of the problems at the club. That one, who is making the decisions, like who is keeping Ollie, who is allowing him to stay in this job and sort of keeping the mediocrity going. Like, how can they not see that he is not the man to take them forward? And also, like, just how I've lost my train of thought because I'm so angry about Ollie. But no, not really. But I really think he's just got to go, and I really feel like it's a similar situation to Steve Bruce, where he's just a dead man walking, and he's going to be sacked imminently. I do agree with Lynchy though. I think he makes a good point about for the next game. I mean, you've spent so long not sacking Ollie. How will a few more games make a difference? I mean, is how many managers are there out there that will be able to get in? Who's going to take over Ollie if they sack him? Ed mentioned jokingly like Michael Carrick. Like, would you? I'd rather keep Ollie in if it's for the next game. He should have been sacked ages ago. So what difference does a few more games make?
There's two ways of looking at it, aren't there? Do you keep him in because he knows the players, or has he lost the dressing room and it's just time to cut your losses with him and get rid? Let a caretaker look after the club for a couple of weeks while you get somebody else in. It's a tricky one.
It's very tricky. I saw some tweets earlier today, probably about I don't know what it was this morning. And they're saying, how come Ollie's not been sacked here, or how come they've not made a statement or anything. You've got to remember that that was sort of very soon after the game, but also United's sort of the top level at United are in America, so it's going to be like 4 or 5 a.m. for them there, if that. So. And I don't think they would have made a decision as rash as that. It's a huge decision to potentially sack or keep Ollie, to come out and say we fully trust you, or just completely sack him. I don't think they would have made it that early. I mean, at the minute it's only midday, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in America at the minute. So even that's pretty early in the day. Some people don't even get up till then. Not looking at anyone here because we're all working people with good jobs.
I wonder where you were going with that.
But anyway, we'll talk about I don't know. Ed was talking about his wages earlier, pre-pod, so you can say that. But anyway, let's talk about the actual game for a little bit. Ed, as the Liverpool fan here, you must have been rubbing your hands together, licking your lips at this whole prospect of Liverpool being 4-0 up at half-time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if I go back even further than that, I was quite anxious before the game. I'm not going to lie. It's mad to be sat here now having won 5-0, because before the game, I looked at our lineup. We were missing Joel Matip, who's our best defender this season, missing Fabinho, Mane was on the bench. So there were, and United came out with full strength. So there were cracks to potentially be exploited from United yesterday. And then I was also worried that they would really kick on after the comeback in midweek. I thought they'd have a lot of team spirit, and they'd be like, yeah, we can do this no matter what position we're in, we can do this. But they just weren't. It was just flat from minute one, and Liverpool came to Old Trafford and just dictated play for the whole game pretty much. There was a period sort of middle of the first half, back end of the first half, where it was on a bit of a knife edge, and the next goal was going to be the important goal. Either Liverpool went 3-up or United got it back to 2-1. And United did create a couple of chances, but defensively, like we said, they just looked awful. You've got a back four and 2 players whose job it is to sit in front of that back four. Liverpool just strolling past them, breaking between the lines, one touch, 2-touch passing, just made it look so easy. I touched on the first goal earlier. Second goal, was that the one where Maguire and Luke Shaw collided?
All the goals were the same, Ed. All the goals were the same. Practically, all of them were exactly the same.
They all came down United's right-hand side, came across, and then, somebody finished it at the end. From a Liverpool perspective, it couldn't have gone better. Like, every single player on the pitch played brilliantly. Konate came in. I was worried about him because that was his only his second Premier League start ever away at Old Trafford. Historically, that's probably the hardest game you'll ever come into as a Liverpool player. And he played brilliantly. Keita had his best game in a Liverpool shirt. You know, what was it? Two assists and a goal, I think, or a goal and an assist. He was sensational. Jota came in, big shoes to fill with Sadio Mane, but he gets that every time he plays. If he's replacing one of the front three, he's got to turn up, and he did. James Milner did a shift for 25 minutes. Henderson dictated the game. I mean, what a pass for the fourth goal. It was just outrageous. If Kevin De Bruyne would have done that, would have been talking about it for 5 years. You know, it was a joke. Put some respect on his name because he dominated the midfield for 90 minutes on Sunday. So, yeah, for Liverpool, it couldn't have gone better. And it's a little bit of a shame because everybody focuses on how bad United were, but Liverpool were unbelievable.
I think Liverpool were very, very good. Dan, for you, we watched the game on our phones on the 3-inch screen that we have. But was it a red card for you for Paul Pogba? I think people forget that Pogba got a red card. You know, it was such a bad performance, but yeah.
I think when you look back at it, when you have VAR and you know that opportunity to look at the challenge again, I think it was. I mean, when you look at his trailing leg, it did also leave the ground, so it was 2-footed, endangering an opponent. It's the letter of the law, isn't it, that he's going to be sent off for that? I mean, it's a tiny bit on the harsh side. Like if you were to look at either way being harsh or an easy red card, but in the letter of the law, I think it is a red card.
Yeah, his 2 feet do leave the ground, and his leading leg does go over the top of the ball.
Yeah.
Catches Keita halfway up his shin. I mean, you can't have any complaints, and I don't think he did. To be fair,
yeah, he understood, didn't he?
Yeah,
when he was walking off.
We all said it as soon as Anthony Taylor went to look at the monitor. Like, he's not gonna not change his decision. I think that is possibly one criticism of VAR is that they make a decision on the field, and then just because another referee somewhere has had to tell them to go and look at it, they're already thinking, oh yeah, I probably should change my decision if another ref thinks I should go and look at it. So that's probably one criticism of VAR in general. But yeah, I think in this circumstance, it probably was a red card.
I think it was a red card on paper, sort of as you say. When you add all the things up, it's all the hallmarks of a red card. It didn't seem that bad when you sort of saw it in real time, but it's one of those when you watch it in slow motion, everything's just sort of happening. You're like, okay, that's probably a red card on paper.
What about Ronaldo's as well on Curtis Jones? Thoughts on that?
That was an interesting one. He's gone for the ball. He's got the ball, obviously, because he smacked it at his abdomen. But I don't know. Is that endangering an opponent?
When I first saw it, I was fuming. I was like, he's got to go for that. That's disgusting. He's basically just kicked out. I remember there was a scenario was it Robin van Persie when Fergie was still in charge? Yeah, and somebody booted the ball at his face.
Ashley Williams.
Yeah, could have killed him. It was like, well, it's not really any different. Apart from it was in his groin rather than his face.
Yeah.
But I
think Ronaldo took advantage of the fact that the ball was where it was. He wanted to kick Jones.
Yeah.
And he took advantage of the fact that the ball was right next to where he wanted to kick him, so it looks like he's sort of half going for the ball. You know, like if he kicks Jones, he misses the ball, and he kicks him in his abdomen. That's a definite red card. So I think he also almost took advantage of the fact just to let out a bit of frustration. I feel like Ronaldo's the last couple of games. I mean, obviously I know they beat Atalanta, but even against Everton and Aston Villa, like he's sort of, I know he's always done it, throwing his toys out of the pram. I mean, Man U should be looking to a player like him to sort of galvanise the team, not like shrugging his arms and throwing his arms up in the air, especially when you got young players like Greenwood around him. You know, probably look up to him, and then seeing this player just sort of almost run out of ideas and just sort of almost sick of playing with his teammates, and you know, I don't know, it's quite a negative atmosphere.
You look at him and Cavani, and they are chalk and cheese, aren't they? Cavani will just run and run and run and leads by example. Ronaldo throws his toys out the pram and starts effing and blinding and throwing his arms all over the place. It's just, that's why for me he's never going to be the GOAT. Messi wouldn't do that.
Ooh, wow.
Signing just makes no sense, does it, of Ronaldo?
No,
I mean, they only signed him because they thought Man City was going to go to Man City, and from a PR perspective, that would look
could not
a disaster.
He he doesn't fit with any of their other players. They got too many attacking players already before Ronaldo, and now they can't fit any of their players in the team, which is part of the problem they're having. I think Ronaldo just does not fit the style of play whatsoever, and like Lynchy said, you can see the frustration in him in the game because he's just not doing anything. He's just not getting the ball, and he's not impacting the game.
Yeah. They're trying to build the team around him, aren't they? Wherever Ronaldo goes, they build the team around him. But he's just kind of come in, and it's like, I think Ting said it a while ago, putting a square peg in a round hole, because they had a relatively good system. They, were giving young players a chance. And now they've just thrown Ronaldo in up front, and it's just kind of disjointed the whole team, really.
Very interesting. Chris, I saw a tweet earlier which says that a lot of players had reservations about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when he started Dan James for the first couple of games of the season. And that was obviously a couple of months ago now, and obviously he's now all coming out about all these tactics and things like that. And my question to you is, obviously the whole Dan James thing is a completely subplot in itself. He's obviously gone to Leeds now, and he's not even at the club anymore. But it's what Ed sort of talked about earlier. You've got players like Milner, you've got people like Henderson, and I'm not a professional footballer, but they're not as technically gifted as your Salahs, your Manes, etc. But Dan James works hard for United. He worked hard for United. You could never fault his sort of work rate, his enthusiasm, and I think that's what a lot of Man United players said, Man United fans said when he left. Is Dan James sort of one of the sort of a player that United kind of need right now to work hard to galvanise? They miss a trick by selling him, or is he just an overrated Championship player?
Well, first, I want to ask you a question, Tag, and is there anything on Twitter you haven't seen earlier today?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've seen a lot today on Twitter. I've been sat in an airport for a couple of hours. I was also sat on a train for about an hour. So I saw a lot on Twitter today, a lot of socials. I didn't see Owen on Sky Sports, which I felt terrible for. But I'm sure there'll be a recording somewhere and he'll put up the socials. But anyway, back to you, Chris.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Catch me out.
No, obviously they don't miss a player like Dan James because Dan James isn't good enough for Manchester United. Let's put it that way. But they got those players on the bench. You say hard-working players. They got players like Donny van der Beek, and they've got Jadon Sancho, and they got even Paul Pogba. Even all right, he was a bit of a muppet and got himself sent off. Which, if I was a Manchester United fan, I don't care how good he is, I'd be fuming with his sending off because it just felt like we're 5-0 down. I can't be bothered to play anymore. I'm just gonna lunge at Naby Keita and think I'm a hero for doing it.
It came from their corner as well, didn't it, Chris?
It did.
She tried to play a 1-2.
It did, yeah.
Just embarrassing.
Yeah, but it is down to Ollie and the coaches what happened yesterday. I mean, surely they must have watched Liverpool versus Watford and analysed the game, or even Liverpool against Atletico Madrid, and thought, right, this is how we need to set up against Liverpool. And they pretty much did what Watford done against Liverpool, just defended poorly. And when you're starting the same 11 that went 2-0 down to Atalanta in midweek, that's when you got to be questioned about your tactics. Because I mean, let's face it, Atalanta aren't as good as Liverpool with their strongest team, but Atalanta were missing 5 players against Manchester United. And then they lost Demiral, one of their key centre backs, later on in the match, it's honestly baffling that Ollie went with that exact same 11, thinking I'm going to get a result here against Liverpool, and like Ed said, pretty much the 3 midfielders in there, even Curtis Jones when he come on, he didn't look out of place at all. I mean, that's the thing. Whether Manchester United don't have a good youngster in there, under 23s that could possibly come in. I know they've got that Hannibal Medjbury, who's highly thought of Manchester United, but I don't know if Manchester United do have someone that under 23s that maybe Ollie or whoever comes in to replace Ollie, because I generally think he's going to get sacked soon because it is not good enough. I mean, we saw those pictures of Sir Alex Ferguson, Kenny Dalglish yesterday. Obviously, Fergie's absolutely moved. It looked like Fergie was fuming, had enough. I mean, you can guarantee if Fergie was managing yesterday, a football boot would have been lobbed at least one of the players yesterday, like he used to do back in the day. Then obviously King Kenny, as Ed would say, was up in the stands smiling. I bet he wanted to be in the away end, to be honest, joining in with the Liverpool fans, singing and chanting and dancing and whatnot. But I also generally thought, I mean, Ed was saying Liverpool played well in that, and don't get me wrong, Liverpool did play well, but I generally thought Liverpool could have went up another gear. I think that's how well they played. I thought they could have, went up another gear, and I honestly compared this match to Brazil versus Germany, that semi-final game where, Liverpool, Manchester United, there's always a big expectation in the game. It was kind of like when we was talking about the North London derby. like the other week, where obviously Arsenal wanted it and Tottenham just didn't want to know. It was the exact same thing. Liverpool wanted it yesterday, and to be honest, Man United, they played like a team of individuals. They almost like played like an 11 that were playing together for like the first time. Like hadn't even trained together, and like just didn't know what to do and how everyone played. And again, I also agree with Ed. Like, what is Ollie doing taking Greenwood off? Greenwood was their best player in the first half.
You brought me on to my next question, Chris. But carry on.
And but like there were so many other players that weren't doing good enough, and he didn't change the system. If you're 4-0 down at half time, surely you change the system. I mean, all right,
Yeah.
it wasn't like a
before
massive massacre in the end, but surely you change it. I don't know, to a 4-3-3 maybe, or just change it just to do something. You don't like swap the player like for like and go the same thing. But yeah, I mean, again, credit Liverpool. Man United got what they deserved, and it has been coming for weeks.
Yeah, just on that, like like we said earlier, Liverpool scored at least 3, if not 4, of pretty much the same goal. When the first one goes in, surely somebody somewhere in the coaching staff goes, "Oh, okay, maybe we should plug that hole that they're using down the left-hand side. Maybe we'll just tweak it a little bit." No, absolutely nothing. There was no change in system. Nothing.
Do you know what the hilarious thing was? Like, what was it? Obviously, Saturday night, me, Leif, and Elba was playing our FM network, and we all had match day on the background. And we was all laughing at Everton's defence. Like, all three of us were laughing at how bad Everton's. I mean, we might come on to that later on in the pod. I don't. Obviously,
who knows?
Who knows? Anything could happen. We could be talking about anything later. But we was all laughing at Everton's defence, and Man United's defence yesterday was exactly the same as Everton's. It was as shambolic as how Everton played, and that, which was hilarious. Looking back,
it really was. I think United's the tactics that they obviously lost yesterday. It was the same squad. I think it was the same team that pretty much lost to Atlanta, but Atalanta, bar the miracle comeback. I don't know if it was a similar squad that played against Leicester the week before, but it always seems to be the full strength United side, and they lose games or they scrape through games. There's no tactical sort of cuteness from Ollie. There's nothing that he's doing which is affecting the game in any way. And Barnes, you said in the chat yesterday, build the team around Paul Pogba, and he's your player that will make this team good, and he'll make this team play better. I mean, you've got players like Pogba, Fernandes, etc. So when he came on yesterday, me and Lynchy were there, and we thought, yep, that's great. Probably bring on for a yellow carded Fred or an ineffective McTominay, because your two CDMs aren't doing anything. So you got to change up a little bit. And then we found out that you took him off for Greenwood. And Lynchy said he's probably the player that's most likely to score, bar Ronaldo, which is, I don't know, it's a bit of again, not a football manager, but you don't take off a player like Greenwood. Especially against a Liverpool side who are going to give you very little chances. You need someone who can score goals like Greenwood. So Ollie's tactics and his substitutions yesterday was a lot to be desired.
I don't understand, because even last season, Ollie's tactics were better. The back four was exactly the same that played last season, and I'm pretty sure they got quite a lot of clean sheets. They were not this bad. I mean, take Ronaldo out, it's pretty much exactly the same team that he had last year, and I think we can all agree they are significantly worse this year than they were last year. I'm not saying that's all down to Ronaldo, because that's not fair. It's probably not true, but it's interesting to see, or I don't understand why he seems to have changed his style. I know on Sky Sports they spend quite a lot of time talking about pressing and stuff like that. I think what I took out of that is, if you watch the highlights back, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is not in the frame of the goal for any of the goals. He's not even there. He's not even in the screen.
There's some shockers on there. There's one, I can't remember which goal it is, but there's one where Robertson just runs straight past him and just keeps going.
It's the first goal. They go 3-on-1. I think Greenwood gets dragged out and presses on his own. Gets done. So Wan-Bissaka presses. And then Lindelof then has to come into sort of a right back position. Yeah. And then Maguire goes and engages the player. And this is another thing I noticed about the game, or the tactics again. I know I don't want to pick out individuals too much, because personally I believe that if you're defending badly, it's a team issue. It's not, rarely is it one individual player's fault. And I think that is definitely the case with Manchester United. I'll come on to Fred, Josh Leif. I'll come on to Fred in a second. But for those goals, a lot of it seems to me that Luke Shaw and Lindelof seem to want to drop off when Liverpool broke the lines, which to me seems the right thing to do. But I'm a slow, very bad defender, so that'd be my natural reaction, would be to run away. Whereas Maguire seems to want to engage all the time. He always tries to go for that tackle, which is so high risk. Like, sure, it's great if you win the tackle, you can start a counter attack, but there's so many times he's just running out of position, and then Shaw's dropping off. And then Liverpool were getting straight in behind, and as Ed said, or as we all said, they did that about 4 times in the game. And Maguire's not looked the same this season as he did for England, because I thought he was really good for England in the Euros. But he's come back this season. He's been poor. I think Lindelof is probably at this moment in time is probably better than Manchester United. And if I was Eric Bailly, I'd be thinking, why don't I get a game? But honestly, like when they had Varane, they were still terrible. And that brings me on to Fred, I suppose. I know Leify said always, "Oh, get Fred out of my club. Fred's this, Fred's that." And I think I put in the chat the other day that Fred's a bit of a scapegoat, and he was not pleased about that comment at all. And I'm not saying Fred is an amazing player, but he does get regularly picked above Fabinho for the Brazil team. So that's number one. So he can't be that bad. Secondly, if you watch Manchester, they literally play like 4-2-4. If you got like Bruno Fernandes, Greenwood, Ronaldo, Rashford, all running up the pitch ahead of you, of course you're going to be like all under pressure all the time. It's just, if players on the opposing team are constantly running at you with the ball, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get done. You're going to give away unnecessarily fouls because you're under so much pressure all the time. And players look worse when they don't know what they're doing, because there aren't any tactical structure. Fred's running around like a headless chicken because he doesn't know where to stand. It's not all on. It's not as like you take Fred out the team. I don't think Fred played against Leicester and they lost 4-2. Like, it's just completely bizarre what's going on at Manchester United at the minute. And I think as a team, their tactics is so poor, and the players do need to take some responsibility. Like I said, I think some of the personnel needs to change. I don't think, personally, I wouldn't play Wan-Bissaka or Harry Maguire in the next game, and I'd switch to a 3 at the back. But I think at the end of the day, most of the players look poor because of the lack of tactics or the poor coaching that's happening at the minute. And obviously, they're lacking confidence because they're under intense scrutiny from the media.
I can't remember which goal it was, but Luke Shaw gets dragged inside. And who was on? I think it's someone on the right flank in the first half. It might be maybe Cato. I can't remember. But as a defender, as a left back as well, I'm saying Luke Shaw has to go out there. Or he's got to be screaming at either Fred or Rashford. I think who was playing left wing that day, yesterday, to get back and mark that player. Luke Shaw was in a centre back position, and you can blame the coach all you like, which you can because that's tactics. But it's also the player. He's a left back. Why is he getting dragged to centre back? That's me as a player who's played Sunday League football at best, and I'm sort of picking those out. Like, you can't. It's a weird point, and United, the lack of tactics make United players a lot worse. And obviously, as you said, Barnes, it's a bit of a scapegoat situation for Fred. I did watch him for about 10 minutes. I tried to keep my eyes on him, see what he actually offers. It's very little, but is that because of the tactics? And I guess that sort of brings me on to my next point, which is if United sack Ollie, who do they get in? It looks like Conte's thinking about it. Ed, what do you think? Would Conte improve this side? Kick him in the gear?
I said in the chat, it's a tricky one. You need a manager to come in who has experience managing big name, big ego players, because United have got loads of them. And it needs to be a manager who is defensively very, very good. He's got a way of playing that shuts up shop, and then you go from there. Because, like I said earlier, United have got some very good attacking players. Scoring goals isn't necessarily their problem; it's leaking them in at the back. Conte fits the bill perfectly because what he does is he builds a defence, he builds a way of playing, quite often 3 at the back, which I don't think would be a bad thing for United, or 5 at the back. And he builds from there, and he would be the perfect candidate because he's got more experience than somebody like Zidane. I know he's obviously managed Real Madrid, but Conte's got more experience of different dressing rooms. Zidane's got experience of the dressing rooms that he knows and he played in for donkey's years. So I think Conte is the standout candidate. Whether he would want to come back to England, I don't know, because when he left Chelsea, he said, "I'm never coming back to England." He hated it here. But United is one of the biggest jobs in the world, so who could turn it down? Especially if they throw silly money at him, I'm sure he would give it some thought. But other than that, I can't see many other big names that are out there. Really, most of them have got jobs. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing somebody.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And Lynch, I think I put this question to you yesterday. If you're a manager that's looking for the United job, there's also the Newcastle job, which is potentially open up. And the fact that is even potentially even a question that you might go to Newcastle over Man United is a bit of a scary one, to be honest. But after all that Ed said, do you think Conte is the right fit for United there?
I'm not sure if he's the right fit. I think he's the best fit who is available. Like Ed said, there's not many managers who are out of a job, and the managers who are in the job, I don't know why they would want to take it. And I think Brendan Rodgers, for instance, is second favourite. He's rebuffed multiple approaches from other clubs, hasn't he already? It seems like he's quite happy at Leicester and what he's building next. And also he knows he'll get time if they did approach a bad run of form. Whereas at somewhere like Man United, he wouldn't, and potentially even at Newcastle now. If a big manager went to Newcastle now, you don't know what the new owner is going to be like there in terms of if they have a bad run of fixtures and results. If they would just sack the manager as well. I think Conte. I think whoever, if they do sack Ollie at any point in the season, I think the new manager or the managers they approach will have to convince them a lot, because I don't know, it feels like there's a lack of direction there almost. And if they're looking at the squad this season and the performances they put in and the players, like Ed said, the big egos, would they want to go there knowing that if they get into a bad run of fixtures, they could just lose their job? Obviously, they get a handsome salary payoff. But yeah, like, I feel like if it is a difficult question in terms of the Newcastle Man U thing, because the new owners at Newcastle would have, obviously, you'd have a huge budget. You might get more time because they know if they let you go and after they coop a big manager like Conte, they wouldn't want to let you go just because you have a bad run of games. It's a difficult one. I mean, I didn't know. I was quite interested. I didn't know that Conte said after he left Chelsea that he never wanted to come back to England. But I guess the flip side of it is still Manchester United, and it is still probably one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in the world. And how could you almost turn that down? Because you have an opportunity to pretty much turn their fortunes around and get them challenging again for the Premier League title, which no manager since Alex Ferguson really has been able to do. I mean, I know they finished second last season, but it wasn't like a close run title race in my opinion. Yeah, it's difficult. Like, there's obviously mutters with Zidane as well, isn't there? But that's the thing. That's the thing I think that makes me think that they will be less inclined to sack Ollie because of the lack of availability of managers. Is it just going to be another sort of sticking plaster, and then potentially that manager's gone within 12 to 18 months again?
Yeah. Just quickly on Zidane, he's quite a negative manager actually. Like, I remember his time at Real Madrid. He's very defensive, and he's not. Manchester United have a certain attacking way of playing the game. Zidane will not do that. Conte's got a little bit of it. Obviously, he will set you up to defend first and foremost, but there is an attacking way of playing. If he won the league, he's not. He's got to win the Premier League. You have to have a certain level of attacking play. I'm not sure Zidane will bring that. He can be quite negative. He's quite happy to just win 1-0. But anyway,
Man U fans wouldn't like that, would they?
No, you saw that with Van Gaal, with Mourinho. They hated, particularly in a game like Liverpool, Man U, for years when Mourinho was in charge, United would sit back, soak up all the pressure, have none of the ball, but nick a goal on the counter-attack. And United fans hated it because they weren't the big dominant side like they are desperate to be.
It's interesting. I think the whole defensive football argument is a bit of a falsehood. I think it's the teams who tend to win the league tend to also concede the least goals. So they're all the big teams are defensively sound. So there has to be that sort of basis of a team playing well defensively. You're not going to get a manager who wants to come into United and say we're going to play attacking football all the time, and we'll win the league by scoring more than the opposition. Ollie did say that to begin with, didn't he? I think I remember, because that's the Man United way. But
Kevin Keegan in.
I completely agree with you, Ting. There, I think that's a great point. It sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how Manchester United are stuck in the past. You sort of have Ollie there on the sidelines, looking up at Sir Alex in the stand. The fans are singing attack, attack, attack. And you're looking, they're 4-0 down at home to Liverpool. Like, why are you attacking?
Yeah.
Batten down the hatches, you're getting absolutely battered. All your
Yeah.
players are just randomly pressing people, and your fans are shouting attack, attack, attack. And like you said, the idea that, we're Man United, we must have attacking coach. It makes no sense. At the end of the day, Manchester United fans want to win. That's what they really want. Where, they might keep saying, we want an attacking coach that plays great football. But realistically, like, that's not how it works, is it? You got, like, that's what they're saying to Ollie, and that's what Ollie says he's going to do, and that's what they are doing. They practically played 4-2-4, and he played. Sometimes he played the team the fans won, and they still lose. So
Yeah.
I agree with you, Ting. I think it's a complete falsehood that
Yeah.
Manchester United can't sign a defensive manager.
Yeah.
I thought it was the Liverpool fans that were chanting attack, 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 wanting more goals. I didn't realise it was Manchester United fans.
We have no idea.
Well,
There's
it
no
could
way of knowing.
have been. That might not be true. Don't quote me on that.
We'll not quote you on that. Chris, funnily enough, I saw on Twitter earlier today that
Was it
Antonio
Rui?
Conte. Yeah, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. Stop it. Calm
Yeah,
down.
of course.
Calm down, Pet. I saw that Antonio Conte called it a special opportunity to potentially manage Manchester United. If you were gambling responsibly, who would you put money on to be your next Manchester United manager? Regardless of whether Ollie gets sacked in the near future, who would you put your money on?
I think I'd go with Ed, and I'd say Antonio Conte as well. Just the fact that as well, you also got to remember, with the whole Paul Pogba situation as well. Antonio Conte was the manager that brought Paul Pogba to Juventus and got the best out of him as well, using that system. And what Antonio Conte did with Pogba is that he got experienced heads around him, your Pirlos, Marquisios in there to help Paul Pogba. And I think like Antonio Conte would be like a perfect manager for, say, the likes of Luke Shaw, Diogo. It is Diogo Dallo, isn't it? Like, obviously, if they changed to a more wing back system, because I think they would suit playing United. And I generally think like, obviously, if they kept Varane fit, I think Varane, Lindelof, and Maguire would be a good sort of back three, if you will. Because let's face it, Antonio Conte turned David Luiz into one of the best defenders in the world in his first season at Chelsea, and that
He did.
that is saying something in that. And I think with the wing back system as well, I think obviously it will suit Ronaldo being up front with someone alongside him. What I will say though is that obviously if they do go Conte and obviously with the wing back system, what happens to the likes of Jadon Sancho? What happens, to Marcus Rashford, Mason Greenwood? Obviously that might mean they'll get more time down the middle in that, but let's not forget they've spent £71 million on Jadon Sancho. Right, he's on the bench at the minute, but under Antonio Conte, unless he can sort of play sort of the Hazard role that sort of Hazard played for Chelsea under Conte, then Sancho's not going to get a look into that. Another name that I will throw out there, just because obviously he is highly regarded around the world, is Erik ten Hag at Ajax. And obviously I think a lot of people kind of want Ten Hag for Manchester United, mainly because of Donny van der Beek. Like, he knows how to get the best out of Donny van der Beek. And again, when talk about attacking football, obviously Ten Hag's come from the Ajax philosophy. He plays the Ajax style, the total football. Well, obviously Johan Cruyff came in that, but it's just whether Ten Hag, again, obviously this isn't like 30 years ago when Ajax and Manchester United were on the same playing level, and that like Ajax to Manchester United nowadays is a huge step up, and that like mainly because like the Eredivisie hasn't kept up with your Premier Leagues, Bundesligas, La Ligas, and that in terms of the quality of the division and the money in the division as well. Like there's nowhere near the same amount of money in the Eredivisie as there is in the Premier League. But if I was gambling responsibly, I would go Antonio Conte.
Interesting. And Ed, did you want to come in here?
I was just going to say it's an interesting one on the sort of formation that Conte would bring in, because you look at the team that he won the league with Chelsea, had players like Victor Moses playing, for crying out loud. Like surely the depth and the quality that United have got, they could find the players that are suited to this system. I think, like you mentioned, David Luiz. and how good he was under Conte. Same thing could happen with Lindelof. He's very young, very good, relatively quick, fairly decent with the ball. That lack of defensive responsibility could be the making of somebody like Lindelof. And then, the comment on Sancho is an interesting one because he is a winger, an out-and-out winger. But then somebody like Pedro was able to get in that team, and I'd have said he was a winger naturally. So, we'll see what happens. I think that's, at the moment, like Lynchy said, there's not a standout candidate, but Conte's probably the one if you look at all the managers that are available, is the best fit.
It all depends when it happens. And Barnes, I think what I find really interesting is that, especially with the Newcastle job, we've openly said in this podcast before, I think a lot of people agree that the next Newcastle United manager is the stopgap for the better manager to come in a few years' time.
It's the Mark Hughes.
Exactly. Isn't Ollie? Why is Ollie being treated as the all-in-one? He was kind of the stopgap, wasn't he? When United were sort of just trundling along, not doing really much. Ollie came in and sort of boosted things. Could you say Ollie was the stopgap, and now he's taken them all the way he can, and it's just a natural progression now? They just need a new manager. That's it. They now need not the marquee manager, but it's just the time for Ollie to go, because that's what a stopgap does. He's there for a couple of years. He's been there for years now, hasn't he? So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? When you sort of get the manager gets sacked, you bring in a caretaker manager, and they start doing well, and you kind of think, a nice cheap appointment here. The fans probably like them because, well, in Ollie's case, he's a club legend. He got that magnificent result, didn't they, away at PSG, I think, which pretty much was then when Rio came out and was like, Ollie's at the wheel for the first time, and then they gave him the job. He's not been a stopgap though, because he's been here. How many seasons did you say?
Yeah,
for 2 seasons, 3
three, I
seasons
think.
now, and it is time to go. He has done a fairly decent job in terms of an upgrade. I completely agree with all the boys that Conte is the best available. I do look forward to Ashley Young coming back in right wing back role, or I was going to say Victor Moses as well. Bring him in. It is interesting though, because assuming he does implement that three at the back, similar to what Chris was saying, like, where's Jadon Sancho going to play? They don't really have a right wing back. Like Aaron Wan-Bissaka's not.
I was just thinking
really very attacking. Like
he's dreadful going forward.
Exactly.
So right centre back.
He's going to struggle.
Yeah, it's a shout.
Like Ed said, I'd play Lindelof in the centre of those three, and then you think Harry Maguire on the sort of as a right centre. He's not that quick. He might struggle to get in the so it'd be very interesting, I think, if Conte comes in, because he likes to play a lot of workhorses, maybe not star names. He has like 2 or 3 star names, and I imagine Pogba will definitely start. But I think other players around the team, maybe Bruno, Ronaldo, might be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, I did write, going back to who could manage Manchester United. I mean, we've always said who's available, but are Manchester United are they not the kind of club that could get someone who isn't available?
Has a job,
yeah, who already has a job. Definitely. I mean, just who I think would be ideal. Not that I think there's no chance some of these will go there, but Nagelsmann, Simeone, Hansi Flick, would he potentially leave the Germany manager role? Pochettino, I mean, is he available from PSG at the right price? I'm not sure it matters who manages PSG at the moment with their sort of completely unbalanced squad. But yeah, I think it's not. I don't think they have to go for Conte, is what I'm trying to say. There are other options if they want to try and prize a manager from another club. They have the money, so why sort of settle for the only man available? Because I think if you bring Conte in, they don't have a squad that currently fits the kind of football that he playing, and he's going to upset a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to get sold in the summer. And I don't think Manchester United fans will potentially be that happy about that.
I think uncertainty around players, whatever happens, is going to be. It's a very interesting subplot. I put in the chat earlier that Donny van der Beek has sacked his agent, and he's got a new agent. Whatever that means. If is that a case of you got me this job, this transfer to United, and it hasn't worked out, get in the bin? Or has he got a new agent to find a move elsewhere? Obviously, we talk about Sancho, Wan-Bissaka. They're not. If hypothetically Conte comes in, they're not going to fit the system directly. And then it's a case of square pegs round holes, and maybe the workhorses get in. It could be the making of players, as Ed also says. So uncertainty around the players is quite an interesting point there, and an interesting subplot.
But that
anyway,
happens with any manager as well.
Of
There's another
course.
point. Happens with
Of
any
course.
manager. They come in, they see players they like, they don't like. Yeah, it will bring change regardless, which is probably
will
what
bring
United
change.
need after yesterday.
Exactly. We've been talking about 50 minutes on Man United.
50 minutes.
Leify, it's like we're the United stand.
We are
Bath
actually
podcast.
the United view.
Yeah, we actually are. Anyway, we'll touch quickly on the Premier League because other things that happen. I mean, we haven't even touched upon Chelsea winning 7-0 against Norwich.
That's outrageous, isn't it? Outrageous.
It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous.
When are Norwich going to win a game? Are they going to win a game?
No, I don't know. They've just looked so poor. Who are Watford? I think Watford scored like 4 goals in like 10 minutes over the weekend. Leeds haven't won a game this season, have they? They drew.
They've
Brighton,
won 1 game, Leeds.
Yeah,
One game, yeah.
Who did they beat?
Who knows? Someone.
It was Newcastle they beat, weren't it?
Was it Newcastle?
Some of it.
Oh, they beat Watford. I've just checked.
Watford. Oh yeah, of course they did. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Ed, did you watch any other Premier League football at the weekend?
Not particularly, but I did watch Match of the Day, so I know roughly what happened. Like you say, there were some big results in there. Obviously, Watford was a big one. And just an update: Ben Foster has released his latest vlog, so it's all good. He's back.
Of course. Interesting.
Just delayed it a bit. Just waited until they won again, and he was like, "Boom."
Vlog when you're winning.
Yeah.
Vlog when you're
I reckon
winning.
people will start chanting that.
Oh no.
But yeah, Chelsea are absolutely smashing Norwich. People often say don't back the early kickoff. Well, not in that case.
That was always going to be a win, wasn't it, for Chelsea?
It was just by how many. Unfortunately, I brought in Kai Havertz this week, and he was the only player for Chelsea not to return any points, other than the 2 for play. Oh, he got 1 clean sheet point. I think it was a big result as well for West Ham beating Tottenham. That's a big result. That's a big statement as well, more than anything. Like Chris said in our chat earlier, Tottenham think they're a big club. They haven't won anything for donkey's years. They now lose to West Ham. I think it was a tight game. It was a cagey game, but West Ham got the job done, and they are flying this year. I think the thing for me at the start of the season with West Ham was how would they balance European football as well as Premier League? Taking it in their stride so far. Happy days.
Happy days if you're a West Ham fan. Lynch, when we were away, we offered the chance. Do we want to go watch the Arsenal Villa game? And you said absolutely not. I have no interest. I'd rather drink some Croatian beer, a Carvalaccio, I think you said. You'd rather do that, but it was a good win for Arsenal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, Chris mentioned the chat, didn't he, the weekend or before the game on Friday night that Mikel Arteta was yet to beat Aston Villa, which was obviously a bad omen before the game. So it's always a tricky fixture, I think, Aston Villa, especially with they've come on, haven't they, since they've been promoted? They're like a solid mid-table team who can definitely cause them upsets. We saw them obviously away to Man United, so I was pleasantly surprised with the result. We actually did play really well. I mean, this is the thing with Arsenal; it's just the complete lack of consistency. You see us start games really quickly. I mean, we started really quickly against Palace. The game against Tottenham, we were 3-0 up within 30 minutes. Villa, I know it was only 2-0 at half time, obviously the penalty on the half time whistle, but we blew them away in terms of our pressing right at the start of the game. And but then there's other games where it's just in Palace in the second half, for instance, the Brighton game away, it's just getting that more consistently, which is the story of Arsenal pretty much since Wenger left. It's just the lack of consistency. But I mean, I'm hoping it's something to build on. But obviously, there's another tricky game with Leicester away next week, I believe. I think that was an interesting result, actually. Leicester beating Brentford. Obviously, hard place. Everyone's found out this season Brentford is a hard place to go. And obviously, building on that win against Man U last weekend, now Leicester slowly climbing up the table after a slow start. So, yeah, I think there was a couple of interesting results over the weekend. But that was the one I thought sort of was a bit of a shock. I mean, I thought Brentford actually would probably get a point at least out of them because of sort of made it into a fortress. I think really that their home ground.
They really have.
It was a great goal by Tielemans as well, weren't it?
You did love that goal, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, it was a screamer.
Really you did.
Building on that chip over to Gea.
He only scores screamers, Yuri Tielemans. Chris, I'm just looking at the table. Arsenal on the same points as Man United. considering everything that's gone on this season. Arsenal are going to get relegated. United are going to win the league. They're on the exact same points. I find that incredible. No one's talked about that enough.
Exactly. It's hilarious how total contenders Manchester United are on the same points as relegation candidates Arsenal after 9 games, and that. But no, like Lindsay said, Arsenal were fantastic Friday night. Again, everyone put in a standout shift, and that especially Emil Smith Rowe. Emil Smith Rowe was absolutely class. Obviously, but massively biased opinion here. I think he's going to be like a big future for English football. I mean, you just look at England, the amount of young talent we've got in that England squad when it comes to Smith Rowe, Foden, Mount, Greenwood. I mean, obviously Mason Mount got a hat-trick for Chelsea as well, didn't he, at the weekend? And Foden put in a key performance for Manchester City against Brighton, which, apologies for bringing that up, Tang, and that because and that. But no, I think I'll go back to what I went to earlier on. I will touch on the Everton-Watford game and that. I mean, obviously it's interesting. Obviously, Rafa, he's got a few injuries at Everton at a minute. He's missing a few key players. But what was interesting is that at 1-1, he decided to take off Anthony Gordon. And watching Match of the Day, the Everton fans booed him. They booed that substitution. They didn't want Anthony Gordon. I mean, they was bringing on Richarlison as well, which was hilarious. Like, Richarlison is one of Everton's key players alongside Calvert-Lewin, and Everton fans were booing taking off Gordon. Like, that's how much. But to be fair, like people like in Everton, Liverpool, they love a homegrown player, and that, and obviously Anthony Gordon coming through Everton's youth system and that. But no, it was a fantastic performance from Watford. I mean, to score 5 goals at Goodison Park. I mean, I bet Josh King was absolutely loving it. Former Everton player, which think about it, it's quite baffling because he literally did nothing in an Everton shirt. And
I can't even picture him in an Everton shirt.
He barely played. He had a couple of subs.
Yeah. I think literally every game he came off the bench. I don't think he started at all for Everton.
I think like 10 sub appearances.
Yeah, and then obviously bags himself a hat trick. But Everton's, like I said earlier, Everton's defender was just as shambolic, if not even worse, than Manchester United's. I think it was Watford's 4th goal, and that where they literally had like 3 players around the ball, and none of them cleared it. They just passed it straight to a Watford player, and then Watford managed to get in and score, and that. But obviously, it's a fantastic result for Watford, and it's a great bounce back for them. Obviously, after being humiliated by Liverpool at home the other week, to come back and beat Everton 5-2 at Goodison Park, and obviously it's just lovely to hear Ranieri post match and that, and then obviously when he was going over to the Watford fans, obviously the Watford fans were clapping in, but he's just like nah, Josh King, it's all about this guy sort of thing, and that is fantastic to see, and that kind of result could help Watford because you never know, relegation could come down to goal difference and that, and winning by a 3-goal margin at Goodison Park it's a fantastic result for them.
There was a stat that I saw on Twitter earlier today.
Oh, fantastic! There we go.
Watford's last 5 Premier League away wins have come under different managers. 5 different managers.
That is huge if true.
Oh, that's super.
That's
huge
the sort of
if
fact
true.
we love to see. Huge if true.
How dare
if it's true. There's no way of knowing. Fact check that.
Sure it was BBC Sport, I think. I'll find it. Talk amongst yourselves.
To be fair, going back to stats as well, it's mental that Mohamed Salah is the first away player at Old Trafford to score a hat trick at that ground. I find that completely baffling.
Since Fat Ronaldo.
Yeah, but
we don't body shame on this podcast.
Yeah. Come on, Ed.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I said Premier League as well, Ed. Whereas
you did.
Ronaldo number 9, shall we say? Ronaldo number 9 never played in the Premier League.
Good. Barnes, I can't believe Chris would bring up Brighton losing, so I'm just going to say let's talk about a team who are above Arsenal and United in the table, and that's Brighton and Hove Albion. Even though they lost to City, they've just dropped out of the Champions League places, which is such a shame for Brighton. But are you are they going to eventually drop down, or what do you think Brighton could do this season?
Yeah, I think they will drop off. I think it's.
How dare you?
Sorry, Tang. I think they're missing Basuma, no doubt.
Oh God,
definitely. They are. I mean, it's a fact. They're missing him in the team. He's a class player. But I think they'll finish top 10, which, considering where they were last season, fighting for relegation, I think that's quite a big improvement, really, from Graham Potter. I don't think to be honest, they don't really have the best squad. Like if you look at their players, there's not a lot that like comes
They
out
work
to you
hard
like,
though.
"Oh."
Then they have a system to play, and that is
Exactly.
the kind of difference. That's it, really, isn't it? To bring it all
Exactly.
together.
They seem to know what they're doing, but they don't have any sort of flashy, star players. And I still think they're desperate for a striker. I'm not sure
Yeah.
Neil Maupay he's a good player, but he's not. I don't know. He's not an amazing player. If you see why, he's not someone who's going to really take them to the next level. Just another game I was going to pick out that
Go on.
we
Is
already
it
spoke
Burnley?
about briefly. It's not Burnley.
Oh,
It's
boring.
not Burnley.
Boo.
Have a lovely Desmond Tutu, but it's not Burnley.
My captain Lee
West
Momentum
Ham.
as well.
West Ham been superb this season, and I think
Superb.
we've barely mentioned them on this podcast at all. I don't know why we haven't
Yeah.
mentioned West Ham, but they've been playing really well. I agree with
They
Ed.
have.
They've coped really well with the football Europa League football, and they're doing well in that competition. Yeah, I think I just reminded myself of a few podcasts ago, or one of our first podcasts we did. We had a conversation. Do you remember you got that manager table up? And I said David Moyes was better than
yeah.
Solskjaer, and everyone
Yeah.
started having a go at me.
Oh, look
No,
at you
I'd
now.
agree with you.
Wow.
Well, look at me
Mic
now.
I'm only
drop.
telling you
Mic
what the
drop.
spirits are telling me.
Yeah.
No, I think Moyes should be credited because even I didn't think he'd do this well at West Ham, and I think they're building a really good squad. And I think if they go far in the Europa League, it could be a brilliant season for West Ham. And I really think they are steadily improving and could be knocking on the door of another maybe top 6 finish potentially. Maybe that's slightly too high, but I think they'll do very well.
Who knows?
It's interesting with Moyes as well because he's going to be joining Steve Bruce in the illustrious 1000 game club soon. I think it's.
What's
I think
he
it's
on?
when he's on 997. I think it's when they play Genk away from home in the Europa League because they got Man City. They got Man City in the League Cup this week. I can't remember who they got in the Prem next week, and then they got the return game against Genk. I think his 1001 game will be against Liverpool, which would be a tough one.
Well, let's just hope he doesn't get called a fat waste
Villa
of
away.
space or a cabbage head.
Oh no.
Oh no!
We don't vegetable shame here either on the pod. He's got Villa away next week, Chris, for his 999th game. But bloody hell, that was a fantastic pod. We talked a lot there. So much stuff. So much
Too
football
much
stuff.
about United. Never again.
Oh no! Imagine if Leif and Owen were here. Jeez, imagine that.
Josh Levy's too busy being a poor manager at FM.
And he said it in the first minute. He said it in the last. It's a sandwich of Chris Olive saying that Josh Levy's a bad football manager. He loves it. But no, thank you very much for watching. For those that have, please be sure to subscribe. Smash that like button as well. We're on 42 subscribers out of 50. We want to hit that 50 mark at some point in the near future.
At some point.
ASAP as possible. As ASAP as possible. That's what we want to do it, being grammatically speaking. But hopefully we'll see Leif and Owen soon on the pod and sort of grill them on this situation. Owen was obviously, as we mentioned, Owen was on Sky Sports earlier, so he's making waves. Be sure to check that out. I'm sure that'll be on Owen's socials. You can find that in the link in the description.
Can I just make a quick point, Tang?
Of course you can.
It's quite funny because obviously Ginger's been on the pod as well. I think like the last time Ginger's on the pod, like Cisco and Bruce were obviously still managers. Next time he comes on the pod, he might not be Ollie as well.
Very true.
Very true. I mean, it could be a whole new, interesting. Maybe when Jack comes in again when he's busy not working, or when he's not busy.
He's on holiday this week, isn't he?
He is.
Football shirts in London.
Oh, what a shop! What a beautiful shop! But no, thank you very much. Thank you very much, boys, for chatting today. It's been absolutely stupendous. And Ed, you must be very happy going into the week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a thumbs up from Owen as well.
Oh no!
Oh
Let
no!
me see if I can sneak here. There you go. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Well, on that note, waving goodbye from everyone here at the Early Bar Football Podcast. Goodbye.
Oh
Dear.
no!
Oh no!
Oh, no.
Get thrown out my club.